Hello everybody and welcome back to Slow Your Roll. I'm Alex and I'm going to be talking about character sheets today. We've got a couple of different character sheets that have come out throughout the beta, and every time a new version comes out, we update them. But there's been a couple of character sheets, like fan-made character sheets, as well as digital character sheets that you might be able to find on something like Roll20, that have come out. So I want to take a look at all of them and see if we can't figure out what's the best way to play. We're going to be going over a lot of information today, and well, my big dumb head's going to get in the way, so we're gonna get that out of there so we can actually see these character sheets. And doing our best to go page by page, just so that way we can stay consistent. I'm going to be grading them on things like format, ease of use, how much information they're able to contain on the page, and truthfully, if it accomplishes the goal of a character sheet, which is to put all of the information of your character on the sheet. So let's go ahead and take a look at the official DC20 character sheet. We've got things like player name, character name, subclass, and ancestry. All basically the same, just in different orders over here, but they do also have a separate area for backgrounds. Kind of like future-proofing, because you will eventually have a background like sailor or architect, and that will affect your character build. So we've already got 1 point in the bank for this 4-page character sheet, and our official DC20 character sheet is 2 pages. However, though, when it comes to formatting, there is a clear champion. This right here is such a beautiful look. I cannot hate it at all. However, when it comes to their combat area, there's a resistances and vulnerabilities area where you're able to write in things like poison resistance, things like resistance to exhaustion from cold or heat. All of those things come up during character creation, and I absolutely love that they've put the Death's Door right next to your health. That's something the official DC20 character sheet could absolutely learn from, because all of your combat stuff should be in the exact same area when you're trying to do combat. And even though it doesn't seem like it, Death Threshold is absolutely one of those. While still trying to reference the combat area, we have a little bit of a change from our previous character sheets. We no longer have a martial check prevalent on the official DC20 character sheet. It is your acrobatics or athletics, whichever one's the highest, but there's no parentheses to say that somewhere. So it's kind of counterintuitive for somebody who doesn't specifically know that information. And which is why the official DC20 character sheet does an amazing job is putting the formulas right next to what they're talking about to really reiterate ease of use. And that's something I wish this 4-page character sheet would do more often or at all. Looking at environment, we've got move speed, hold breath, jump distance, but over here, there's ground speed, climb speed, swim speed, burrow speed, fly speed, jump distance, fall threshold, and breath duration. You even get a place to represent your creature's size, which does matter in grappling situations, and most of that is not prevalent over here. Sure, there is this little click box system to show that you are an expert burrower, or that you could glide, limited fly, or fly completely. But none of that on the official DC20 character sheet is really intuitive to understand when just looking at it and not having it explained to you. I personally love this right here because if I'm playing a spellcaster, this is where I put my spells. It'll be 1 MP to cast the spell, 2 AP to cast the spell, and then what the spell is, and I'm usually able to put a parentheses for the spaces the spell is able to cast. Like parentheses 10s. It's really a shorthand that I'm able to use for any of my spells, and I don't like that that area has been minimized over here. I also don't like the current and max for that. I think they probably meant it for a different resource that maybe you could use in the future, but I use them specifically for spells as a shorthand, and I wish that would have been more instead of less. Looking over to our trade sections though, there is a specific pet peeve of mine that both of these character sheets are stepping on. Why is Arcana, History, Nature, Occultism, and Religion still here? I understand that they were knowledge skills, but they are now trades, so treat them like the rest of the trades and put them in the dang beta, not on my character sheet. Although I will highlight that I love that they included engineering over here just to point out that, hey, it's in the game now, it's in the beta. But I should figure that out in the beta. Relatively similar spaces for the attacks, but it does look like there's a little bit more room over here. But that brings me to the words and formatting of the words. These feel just a little bit smaller everywhere around the character sheet, and somebody who technically needs glasses and doesn't really wear them like me is gonna have a hard time trying to see this stuff around here. So I wish this was a little bit bigger at least. And I'm sure people with actually bad eyes would probably say that this is too small for them too. Going over to the language section, we have a specific box where you're able to put your intelligence or charisma into that box to say you are using that as a bonus. Your DC language check gives you the formula, but it doesn't give you the box. So it's just one more little thing that we can learn from this 4-pager. And before we move on from the very first page, there's something that's not really represented on the official DC20 character sheet. That's your senses. You have a passive awareness, you have a passive insight, and you have a passive investigation. But all of those things aren't outwardly stated unless you go looking for them in the beta. And to be honest, I kind of forgot that they existed until this character sheet pointed them out for me. And as far as information goes, things like fall threshold, breath duration, swim and climb speed, all of those aren't necessarily represented on the official character sheet, at least not in a capacity that's easy enough to understand without having to look up the rules. Like, I obviously understand that my swim speed is 3 spaces from looking at this over here, but it doesn't exactly tell me over here. I'd have to know how to mark in these little checkboxes and know what that means. There is a little miscellaneous section that I specifically use for currency, but if you guys use that for anything else, please let me know. And now we're able to move on to page 2 of the official DC20 character sheet, where on this second page, most of that stuff also resides. There are a place for your attunements, your equipped items, your possessions, and supplies. But as we go through this official DC20 character sheet, you'll notice that the category says stored, or this category says carried. And there is not a single thing that's stored or carried in this category. Because where am I going to put my abilities, my spells, my maneuvers, techniques, or even just equipment specializations? All of those things don't exactly have a place on the official DC20 character sheet, and it's arguably the most important thing that you need to have on the character sheet to be able to play your character. So I was just barely able to squeeze in all of the information needed for a level 1 character. And this isn't even a spellcaster. If it was a spellcaster, I'd have at least 5 to 6 spells that I absolutely would have to go look up every single time that I use them. So when it comes to space availability on the official DC20 character sheet, it's gonna have to be a failure. This is only usable for a first level character, and you have to be a marshal. Now, going over to our 4-page character sheet, it's got a lot of the same downfalls. There's a place for your ancestry, but it's not necessarily big enough. If I had an ancestry with one more negative, or an ancestry that had a little bit lengthier of a description like Beast Whisperer does, then it absolutely would not have fit in this category. I do, however, wholly appreciate a characteristics, personalities, and backstories area. Being able to put those things into your character sheet sometimes helps you concrete those things about your character as well. There's not a lot of times that you think about your character, their backstory, their family, and then you're like, wait, what color are my eyes? There's certain simple things like that that can really help you through describing your character if that characteristics area is just right there for you. Same thing with ideals, flaws, likes, personalities, dislikes. I wish it wasn't just a shorthand area for personality and backstory. And I do absolutely wish that this trend of cutting boxes in half would stop almost wholesale, because it's not helpful. But the fact that they give you a backstory box to begin with at all is amazing. Next up, you're going to see a page for the actual features of your character, which is going to be necessary to include on an official DC20 character sheet. You can see your class path, whether you're a martial or spellcaster, and if you're able to use the weapon styles. There's also things like training for armor and shields, and it outlines whether you're wearing light or heavy armor for those, as well as your character path. Now, in DC20, we only go up to level 10 and then you're able to subclass. But those levels aren't necessarily laid out for a class path. For the most part, we're only ever going to need the first 4 bubbles because that's when you're going to get to level 10. And it's very unlikely that people are going to play to level 20 by multi-classing, but I love that they're planning ahead for things like that. And that's something that the official DC20 character sheet kind of doesn't do, which is plan ahead. And that's not the first time we've seen planning ahead, being the backgrounds coming soon. Of course, you're going to need a place for features, talents, and maybe even your flavor feature. But this specific box is absolutely useless because it's cut in half. And the bestiary flavor feature just plain does not fit when you try to fit it into this flavor feature box. I wish this box was gone entirely and we simply extended these 2 large columns downward. And on to the last page, spells and techniques. I do appreciate that we essentially have an entire page to just write some stuff in. But why did we have to break it into 3 columns? I feel by trying to format this to organize it for people, you're still kind of taking away some of the space that people could be using for things like spells, techniques, maneuvers. And yes, as a martial level 1, I was able to fit almost every single thing that I could think of a part of my character onto this character sheet. But God forbid I was a spellcaster who needed to fit 6 spells in these spaces and then level up. So even when it comes to this 4-page character sheet that I'm praising so highly, it still is not going to be useful past level 2 or 3, which I believe is one of the bigger problems that a character sheet needs to address. Stop making me go to a different source for the information that should be on this character sheet. And no, it's not perfect, and I'm not trying to say that it should be because we're in the beta. I'm even trying to grade it because we're in a beta and feedback is relevant to make this the best that we possibly can. But truthfully, what this makes these 2 character sheets is a reference. It doesn't make it a full character sheet with all the information that's necessary. And in all reality, if you just need a reference, you should probably use something like this. If you were going to use the digital character sheet on Roll20, it has a bare bones approach where you see your things like subclass, ancestry, your stats, and then how much damage you do, or maybe even what spells that you have. But when it comes to just having a reference for a character sheet, this is what does it the absolute best. Showing your prime, agility, might, and even doing the math for you. Things like combat, spells, death saves, move speed, all of that's taken into consideration and kept track of. But it knows that you're gonna have to go look up a spell description, a maneuver description, a description of a condition, things like that. And as far as ease of use goes, this one might just be the easiest because it does the math for you. The other 2 character sheets, since they have the goal of encompassing all of the information that your character should have, they don't necessarily accomplish the goal that they're trying to accomplish. But this character sheet's goal is to give you a very bare bones shorthand of what your character sheet is, and it does it so very well. So for a final verdict, this online character sheet does what it says it's supposed to do so very well. And I'm sure as iterations continue to go on, you'll be able to add more and more things to make it less likely for you to have to go searching for things like a spell description, maneuver description, or item effect. But when it comes to these character sheets, they do an excellent job of formatting. It looks amazing, but overall, if we're not able to encompass all of the information for our characters on the character sheet, then it's essentially just a reference. This character sheet on the right with 4 pages to work with does its job a little bit better, but it still falls short the second you become a spellcaster, level up, or get a subclass. Now I know I probably sounded a little bit harsh during this video, and that's not really the approach I was trying to go for. I only wanted to critique these as much as I possibly could to improve it. I want to know the goal of this character sheet and if it's accomplished its goal. And I'm able to assume the goal of the character sheet is to provide all of the information for your character to be able to play it on a table without extra resources necessary. And I don't believe that either one of these character sheets is able to do that, at least not in a capacity that encompasses all characters and all levels, even throughout the beta. I would give them a passable grade because they look great, but I still need to check the beta and use a Google Doc to actually play the game. And that's something that we need to start moving away from to be able to call these character sheets a success. But that's just my 2 cents, everybody. Is there something about these character sheets that you absolutely love? Or something that you kind of wish could be changed a little bit? Please leave that down in the description below, and I'll see you all later.